are her consequences? How can we keep a judge in place who sees herself as carrying out God's mission rather than carrying out the laws of this state? Tennessee children and their families deserve better than the trauma inflicted on them by this dangerous judge. Our Constitution gives the General Assembly the ability to intervene and to put a stop to this once and for all. This resolution is an important step in getting justice for those children and their families neglected by DCS and harmed by this judge.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Senator Gilmore, I think, had some words.
Thank you. And thank you, Senator Campbell and Representative Johnson, for taking the lead on this important issue. My name is Brenda Gilmore. I have the honor of serving as a state senator of District 19. About 8 years ago, I had the distinct honor of serving as chair of the Tennessee Black Caucus. And at that time, Judge Donna Scott Davenport had the authority to oversee juvenile justice system in Rutherford County. And she has a staggering history of jailing children. In most instances, they're African-American children. She has said that kids must face consequences, which seems not to apply to her or other adults in charge in Murfreesboro. At the time that I was serving as chair of the Tennessee Black Caucus, there was a video that had appeared on YouTube, and it showed two small boys, ages 5 and 6 years old, throwing punches at a larger boy as he walked away. And other kids were yelling and looking on. None of the children intervened or tried to stop the fight. And for that reason, Judge Davenport ordered the police and law enforcement in Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, to go to Hobgood Elementary School and arrest these children. They not only were arrested, they were placed in handcuffs. And I would just pose the question today, if you had 6-year-old and 7-year-olds that were witnessing a fight and did not have the courage or the wherewithal to stop that fight, and in addition were placed in handcuffs, how would you feel? Rutherford County established the position of elected juvenile court in 2000, and ever since that time, Judge Donna Scott Davenport has been the job's only holder. She calls herself the mother of the county. I would question that title that she has. The county's high detention rate goes against the reform movement that started about the same time that she was elected in the 1990s. We have seen the rate of locking juveniles up going down everywhere in the entire country and the state of Tennessee, with the exception of Rutherford County. Again, I think it's time for us to take action and have this judge removed. Placing children, especially 6-year-olds, in handcuffs is never the way to reform juveniles. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gilmore. We also have House Democratic Caucus Chairman Vincent Dixie on the line, as well as Representative John Ray Clemens. If either of them would like to make a quick remark, please unmute yourself now.
Go ahead, John Ray, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I just wanted to point out that, this is an issue that has been going on a long time. This isn't something new. This isn't just start with recent articles about our age. Most of you will recall back in 2016 where those children were arrested in their classroom. Those small young children were arrested in their classroom. Representative Mike Stewart and I called for an investigation at that time. It was obvious that things like that don't just happen. That is a evidence of a systemic problem and an ongoing problem. And I thank Representative Johnson and Senator Campbell and Senator Gilmore and others for leading this effort to finally address this long-term systemic issue that has been plaguing Rutherford County children for too long. As you'll recall, I fought against efforts removing judges last year and attempts to remove judges last year because it was uncalled for. However, there are situations and circumstances that justify the actions that are being sought. And I would argue, as laid out and stated by those who've spoken before me, there are ample grounds to take this serious action with respect to this judge. This has been going on too long, and it's time for change. Thank you.
Chairman Dixie.
I just wanted to follow up. I think everyone here has made excellent points, and I'm not going to kick that can down the road anymore, but I just want to reiterate that it is not just a Judge Davenport issue. It's a system issue that is broken, and it needs to be fixed immediately. And we didn't just arbitrarily get here right by today. We have taken the proper steps. There's been complaints filed. We've done what we're supposed to do. Nothing has happened that has been satisfactory to our standards, and it's just time for us to take action. And we are looking for the relief in the only way that we know how as elected officials. And this is the way that we need to go about it. And it is just unfair of the abuse of power that she had. And by her own admittance, she has broken the law. And this is a slap in the face to us as legislators because she made a policy into a law. And if you can do that, if anybody can do that, then why are we even in office? So I want to make sure that we understand there are consequences for our action, and we all are held to a higher standard, especially when we're in elected office. People entrust us to be fair and impartial and do the right thing. And that's what we have to do. And I want to encourage everyone to make sure that we push for justice, not only for those kids, but that they're adults now and their lives has been forever changed. They can't get jobs. They can't do things because they have marks on their records. So I want to make sure and impart on everyone here that we will not let this die. And I applaud Senator Campbell and Senator Johnson for taking the lead and keep pushing it down the road a little bit so we can get some justice for those who need it the most. And thank you for coming.
With that, I will open it up for some questions. If anyone in the media has a question, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we will do our best to address them one-on-one. I see we have a hand raised. It looks like Justin Canoe from the Tennessee Holler. Justin, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to ask how common are resolutions like this calling for judges to resign, and if there have been any in the past, what has come of it?
Well, I must say that from what I've seen and what the time I've been here, they are not very common. Representative Clemens referred to one where, it was basically more about not liking a decision rather than someone abusing their powers. So to my knowledge, that is the only other one I've seen, but maybe someone who's been there longer could speak to
that. I'm not aware of any. However, I think that these acts that are being targeted specifically toward African-American children is worth our efforts. It's egregious that young children as young as 6 years old are being handcuffed and taken to juvenile facilities. And the fact that the rate of children being jailed in Rutherford County is 48% compared to 5% in the state of Tennessee is worth our efforts. So although we may not have any statistics to provide for you today, because of the injustice is so egregious, we have to speak up now.
Next up, I have Mariah Timms with the Tennessean. Mariah, feel free to unmute yourself now. And if it helps, you can address your question to a specific lawmaker if that helps.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I guess it's still morning. I am, Representative Clemens mentioned this, but we're looking at a year where Judge Davenport is up for re-election again. This story has obviously garnered a lot more attention in the past few months, as more people are aware of what's been going on since 2016 onwards. Just sort of wondering why now? Why this extreme step, as you have all called it, at this point in the process?
Well, I would have to say that systems have failed us. She's been in office for more than 10 years and nothing has changed. I think that it needs to happen. It's egregious, the things that she has been doing for those 10 years. And I believe that we don't need to see her running in another election. Children are at stake. Our most vulnerable children are at risk here, and we need to remove that risk.
In addition, we followed the steps of what we needed to do. It's a process. So there was a claim filed. We put that in, and we're working the system doing it that way. So this is just the next step in the process. And unfortunately, it just takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And we just want to make sure that we get it right, do what's right, and make sure that we be objective and not rush to judgment, but also follow the due process of the law.
Next, we'll go to Maribel Knight with Nashville Public Radio. Maribel, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, good morning. Thanks so much. Two questions. One, the complaint that Mr. Dixie mentioned, is that if you could just expand a little bit more on specifically what that complaint was. Maybe it's part of the process of this. Just curious to get a little bit more on that. And then secondly, is there any discussion about the lack of state numbers generally? I mean, there's not been a comprehensive report giving new statistics on juvenile courts around the state, of which there are 98 in total since 2014, where these numbers you're citing come from. Is there any discussion about trying to get the resources or rally the resources to get data again on these courts? Thanks.
I'll start with talking about the complaint that has been filed. It's been filed with the ethics, Judicial Ethics Commission, and so it's working through its process there. And I had actually met with the Attorney General right before Christmas to decide if I want to file my own claim. But when I didn't realize that there was already a claim in process, not claim, complaint in process. So what I wanted to do was just make sure that particular complaint went through its process and the next step. And I asked the Attorney General, what are the next steps that we can take as a legislator or an elected official? And the next step, you said that you can actually file a resolution. You can have a judge removed, but we would have to vote on it. It's a 2/3 vote that would have to accompany this. And this is the way that we just have to go. And we want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to weigh in on this. This is just not a Democrat-Republican issue. This is a life issue. And it's not black or white. This is a human issue. And we have to open up our hearts and open up our minds, because the way that we're going in Tennessee, we're taking steps backwards. And it's appropriate that we're having this on this day of Martin Luther King Remembrance Day and Celebration Day, because we have failed our children, and Tennessee is just moving so far backwards when it comes to partisan politics, and we're forgetting why we took these roles. It should be to make Tennessee better, but instead we have power and political aspirations that are taking over, and we just want to do what's right by our constituents, by our students, by our children, and that's why we're here. Now, the second part, someone can answer about that, about the statistics, because I'm not really abreast of, can talk intelligently about that.
I'll just say that there's a deficiency of data, and we have been struggling with that. I think that's by design. We find in places where there was an attempt to have data aggregation, particularly with a former commissioner of DCS, for example, who implemented a culture survey, that when that opportunity is available to actually get that data, that there is some alarming information there. And so I think that there's a reluctance on the part of some of these institutions to aggregate and make available that data.
I was saying, lastly, I think it goes back to the system is broken. For her to get to have these habits and it has gotten this far for 10 years, it's not just a Judge Davenport issue, it's a system issue, and it has to be broken down. Unfortunately, we have to have a starting point of where we begin this process. But the whole system has to be examined thoroughly in order for this to make a difference. Because if not, it'll happen again with the next judge, and then again and again.
Yes, I believe we absolutely have to reinstitute this data so that this does not repeat itself and happen again, either in Rutherford County or some other county. The data is important. We need to have eyes on that, and we need to make sure that when DCS is licensing these programs, that they're doing a more thorough job.
Next up, Levi with News Channel 5. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you guys for taking our questions. My question would just be, we've talked about this being a systemic issue and a long-term issue that's been going on for some time now. But clearly, the judge has been in this position. She was elected in this position, and there might be some folks in Rutherford County who feel that her policy lines up with their values. And so what would you say for the folks out there who might think, this is we put her in this position for a reason, and, we want her type of brand of justice?
I would say if her policy lines up with their values, they shouldn't be living in a democracy. This is what she's doing is illegal, and incarcerating children as young as 8 years old. And I really, I want to thank ProPublica and WPLN for their reporting on this, by the way. I think that it was really valuable for them to shed light on it. But incarcerating children as young as 8 years old is abuse. That's child abuse. And so if people feel like they want that kind of discipline with children, they need to seek a different venue than our government system, because that's not legal.
Yes, it's important to remember that those charges were made up, that she took those kids from that school, cuffed them, and locked them up. Those charges were made up.
And I would just add to that although an $11 million award was awarded to some of the children in Rutherford County, that the conditions that allow this to happen still exist. The people who are in charge have failed the children, and they're still in charge. So unless something drastically is done, then we expect the same kind of practices to continue.
Next up, we have Gerald with WKRN News 2.
Yeah, have you heard from leadership regarding this, and how likely are you to get their support, and what is critical in impeachment of a sitting judge?
I've talked a little bit to leadership about it. They're going to consider it. It's, it is a very strong action to take. That having been said, I think that this is not a partisan issue at all. I think that we can all agree that that abusing children like this is something that we're all opposed to. And even though there has been an investigation requested by 11 members of Congress on this, and the governor has actually requested an investigation, just to emphasize that it is bipartisan, that those processes take a long time. And all of the time that the investigations are going on, we will have a judge making decisions for children who has shown in the past that she is not able to make decisions that are humane. So, I think that I hope that we will have bipartisan support on this. Anyone else?
With that, I see Justin Canoe, you have a follow-up question.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Joe was asking, is there any way, you guys mentioned BCS, is there any way to compel anybody to come and testify about anything from BCS to the judges or anything? Is there any way to have a conversation about this in the legislature and committee now that you're in session?
So this process, this resolution, if it passes, a joint committee will be established with 5 members from each chamber, and the chairs will automatically be the most senior. It'll have full subpoena power. Notice will be given to the judge, and at the conclusion of the joint committee, they will recommend for or against every cause for removal. In this case, there's only one cause. They'll submit a report to the House and the Senate within 10 days of that. And then there'll be a joint session, or a convention is what they call it, of the Senate and the House. And deliberation will take place. And then the chambers separately will vote on those issues. So there's plenty of room in those processes, primarily in the initial committee process, to actually subpoena witnesses and request witnesses.
And I would actually love to see a discussion in Government Operations Committee, which Senator Campbell and I are both on. And it was about a year ago that we had DCS in government operations over the comptroller's audit. And this was not something we knew at the time. And I would love to be able to revisit this with them as well.
With that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. If you have any follow-up questions that were not